We were sitting at the patio in Mar-a-Lago, Michael and I, and we were kind of, geeking out, going down this rabbit hole. And he goes, Eric, you need to take this property. And Mar-a-Lago has no debt on it. You need to take this property. You need to mortgage it right now, and you need to go out and buy Bitcoin. By the way, he was dead serious, right? He's the guy that goes out and says, sell your liver and kidney and buy Bitcoin. And by the way, he's probably also right.
Break the cycle of exploitation, break down the barriers to truth, break into the next generation of privacy, break free. Free to scroll without being monetized, free from censorship, freedom without fear. We deserve more when it comes to privacy. Experience the next generation of blockchain that is private and inclusive by design. Break free with Midnight. Visit midnight.network/break-free. Built for speed, scale, and simplicity, Bridge helps businesses send, store, accept, and launch stablecoins instantly. Serve global customers without navigating the complexities of setting up crypto rails. It's how companies like X, Shopify, and AirTM unlock new markets, reduce FX costs, and move money at internet speed. Looking for a faster, cheaper way to move money worldwide? Owlting, now listed on the NASDAQ under the ticker symbol OWLS, is building the rails for stablecoin payments. Convert fiat to stablecoins and send money as easily as a text message. Learn more at owlting.com. Eric Trump, welcome to CoinDesk Spotlight.
Jen, it's great to be on.
All right. Well, on this show, we like to have a little bit of a longer conversation with folks who are making an impact on the industry. And I want to start here because I think you might have an interesting and maybe different perspective than some of the folks I've spoken to previously on this show. I'd love for you to reflect and maybe tell us a little bit about your first memory of money really mattering.
Oh God, money really mattering. I was at the age of 11, right? And listen, we were spoiled as hell. We were Trumps, right? And we grew up in ivory towers, and every stereotype that you could probably imagine was probably right about us. I mean, I grew up on the top floor, the penthouse of Trump Tower, but my family was, and my father and my mom, they were not into giving us cash in any way, right? So we always had a warm roof over our head. We always had, great meals. We always went to the best schools. But if we wanted something, we went and worked for it. And so I started working construction when I was 11 years old. I worked on our construction sites every single summer, all summer long. I was cutting rebar with acetylene torches. I was running chainsaws. I was doing demolition. I was doing electrical work. I was doing HVAC work. And that's when I learned the value of money. When you're sitting there sweating, bleeding, breaking down walls, dusty, breathing in unthinkable things, and you're making $4 an hour for it, you understand the value of money. You learn the value of money. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I mean, again, you learn the value of money, but you also learn the skill. It tired you out. There's nothing good about a type A kid having too much free time or too much money, right? That leads to disastrous things. And so, being tired at the end of a job site and at the end of a day, going to bed, and also not want to take that money and go use it to buy drugs or go party or whatever it might be was a great thing. But my first really comprehension of real money was working, sweating, doing demolition, kind of the building blocks to, the real estate world that I love.
And then we go from there. I know there's a large gap we're covering here, but we go from there to your family being debanked. You've spoke about this in the media before, and that really being the door that kind of, introduces you to the crypto world. I wonder if you could take me back to that moment when you first started really learning about crypto, really considering it as an industry that you wanted to be involved in, and what was going through your mind at the time?
So, Jen, I was a hard asset guy, right? Back to construction sites. I mean, I've built more towers around the world than just about anyone, more hotels, tall residential buildings, commercial buildings. I'm probably better at renovation than anybody you've ever seen before. Like, it's just how my mind has always thought. And, I never thought I'd be in the world of digital assets, not to the extent that I am. And, we certainly saw the weaponization of government. In fact, I just wrote a book about it, not to kind of plug it, but it's #1 on Amazon right now, Under Siege. It's doing great. But so many people, I mean, if you've had your eyes open over the last 10 years, you know what they've done to us, right? They've debanked us. They've deplatformed us. They tried to impeach my father. They made up dirty dossiers. They, the Russia hoax, weaponizing every AG and DA against our family, taking us off of Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. And, that was the siege. That's exactly what the book was about. But a big part of what I write about here was kind of the debanking. And, again, I was a guy, I knew Michael Saylor for the last 25 years. He's a great friend. He's a guy I knew back in, New York before he even, went down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. And he always said to me, at least in recent years, Eric, you have to get into cryptocurrency. And 7, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, I kept on saying, Michael, I don't understand it. Honestly, if I can't feel it, if I can't touch it, it's not real. And now I reflect on how wrong I was during those years. And thankfully, I got into crypto early on a relative basis compared to most who are trying to, get in now. But it wasn't until the debanking, and I'll never forget the same people that were coming after me, right, and my family, and the Trump organization, and our assets. The same people who were trying to destroy our lives and destroy our company were the same people that were going after probably, Jen, the very people who are watching us right now. People who believed in Bitcoin, people who believed in cryptocurrency, and they had a wallet at Wachovia, or they had a wallet at Bank of America, or I shouldn't even say a wallet, a bank account, and they were within the crypto ecosphere, and all of a sudden they get a letter in the middle of the night saying congratulations, you no longer have banking service with you name the top tier bank. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard that story. I mean, thousands and thousands of times. And I realized the same people again who were attacking me were going after the very people in this industry. And I fell in love with those people. I realized how brilliant they were. I realized they were right. I realized how fragile the banking industry was in the United States. I mean, and I'm sure we'll dive into this rabbit hole in a second, let alone all over the world. If you think your banking industry is fragile in the United States and can be weaponized against you, could you imagine living in Zimbabwe? Could you imagine living in certain countries in South America, other countries in Africa or in Asia or one of these places, right? I mean, you don't stand a chance. I mean, at least here you have a system, there they don't. And so that was my process into cryptocurrency. I mean, I started meeting these people. I started talking to them, and posing very logical questions. I'm a hospitality guy. Every week I'm sending money around the world. I'm receiving money, hotels all over the globe, golf courses, et cetera, et cetera. Why is it on Friday afternoon if it's 5 o'clock? Why can't I send a Swift wire transfer after 5 p.m.? Why does a bank get to hold my money and earn interest on it, for 72 hours over the course of a weekend? When with Bitcoin, you can be sitting there having a glass of wine with your wife at 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night on a Saturday, and be able to transfer infinite amounts of money across the globe in seconds for virtually no fees. Why doesn't the modern financial system work that way? As part of getting debanked, Jen, I mean, I went and I applied for a mortgage for my house when I moved to Florida. I'd be more on not to. Under my father, interest rates at the time were like 2%, right? I mean, who wouldn't take 2% money from a bank? And I'll never forget going through 120 days of Know Your Customer with a bank that I had been doing business with for 25 years, meaning they knew me. I had banked with them for 25 years. And it took them 120 days for a mortgage when I had more than enough assets to buy that house many times over. And yet paper forms and this and that and nonsense. I mean, and I realized that there was nothing that was done by modern banks that couldn't be done better, cheaper, faster, more transparently on blockchain. And I realized how brilliant these people were, despite the fact that every single day somebody was trying to take off their heads because they believed in trying to modernize the financial system in this country. And that's when I fell in love with cryptocurrency. And that's when I put my whole heart and soul into it. I have to say, and I love building, right? I've got real estate. I've got 2x4s. I've got concrete in my blood. I don't think I've ever had as much fun with something as I've had with this industry, with the people in this industry, and with everything that I've built in this industry.
You said something earlier. Crypto was something that is intangible. You can't hold it, and you're used to construction, real estate. It's there. It's in front of your face. You can touch it. You can feel it. Do you still struggle with that at all?
No, I don't. I actually, as a hard asset guy, if you look across our portfolio, I mean, take the Trump Towers, everybody knows them. Take the 40 Wall Streets, take the Mar-a-Lagos, right? And we've got 100 of them around the world in all those sectors. And actually, I think sometimes the tangibility of those assets are actually, this is what makes real estate great. It's also what makes this sometimes dangerous. I mean, look at New York. I know you're in New Jersey right now, right? We're not going to get to politics, but you've got a guy who's, pretty much a socialist who's trying to take over, the biggest capitalistic city in the world right now. And it's a little bit troubling. And all of a sudden, over the last 10 years, again, regardless of political affiliation for a second, you've seen probably the biggest exodus of wealth leaving New York and going to places, i.e. Florida, the place I'm sitting in right now, and the Carolinas and Texas and so many other places, right? I can't just take Trump Tower, pick it up and put it in the middle of Trump, in Miami. I can't just take Trump Tower and put it in the middle of Dallas, right? And so real estate is such an unbelievable asset class, right? But the greatest compliment to real estate is actually something, that is instantly liquid, because real estate's not liquid. I mean, if I tried to sell a Trump Tower, it might take me 18 months to do it. You'd have every broker and every title company and every bank, and only the most sophisticated parties in the world would even be able to put their fingers on an asset like that because of its value and the complexity and where it's located and what it would take to acquire it. You take cryptocurrency, on the other hand, you can move, as much value instantaneously, worldwide, 24/7. It doesn't need to be actively managed, right? It doesn't need to be insured. It can't be burned down by fires. It can't be taken out by hurricanes or tornadoes, right? It's not subject to bad general managers. It's not subject to weaponization of government, where you have a AG or DA try and target your family because you believe in principles that they don't. It's not subject to a bad mayor coming in, which causes people to get scared and otherwise flee, or have bad policing policies where your streets get dirty and crime, infiltrates. Crypto doesn't have any of those problems. And so again, I'm a big hard asset guy, but for every issue that hard assets has, every constraint that hard assets has, crypto fills that void so perfectly. And it's not until you can realize how you can actually marry up those two worlds that I think you could truly be successful. Now, the one other thing, Jen, I don't think I would ever say today that crypto is not a hard asset that's not tangible, right? I mean, you look at what I'm doing at American Bitcoin. I think we've created the greatest, Bitcoin company in the country by far. We're mining Bitcoin for literally 50 cents on the dollar. We're doing it in West Texas using American energy. I mean, the amount of energy that goes into that, I mean, it makes it tangible. The amount, I mean, the ecosystem behind it makes actually many of these digital assets incredibly tangible. So, when I say you couldn't feel and touch it back in the day, that was probably me being a little naive. I feel like you can almost feel and touch Bitcoin at this point, right? I mean, you need the energy. You need the data centers, you need the miners, you need the liquid cooled ASICs machines to do it. And I actually think you're really approaching tangibility among those assets, whereas I think most people would consider them digital and therefore kind of aloof. They're no longer really aloof to me.
You and I have spoken about American Bitcoin before, but I think for the purpose of this interview, let's lay a little bit of a foundation here. Talk to me a little bit about your vision for American Bitcoin versus some of the other Bitcoin treasury companies out there. I know you said Michael Saylor is a good friend of yours. There are a few different business strategies behind some of your competitors, but what's the value prop here for American Bitcoin?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Michael is. In fact, we were sitting at the patio in Mar-a-Lago, Michael and I, and we were kind of, geeking out, going down this rabbit hole. And he goes, Eric, you need to take this property. And Mar-a-Lago has no debt on it. You need to take this property. You need to mortgage it right now, and you need to go out and buy Bitcoin. And I started laughing, and I said, Michael, I know you're right. I mean, two things can be true in life. I know you're right. At the same time, I think if I mortgage Mar-a-Lago to the hilt, but he goes, no, honestly, seriously, even joking aside about Mar-a-Lago, and we were laughing, we were having fun. By the way, he was dead serious, right? He's the guy that goes out and says, sell your liver and kidney and buy Bitcoin. And by the way, he's probably also right. But aside from that, I mean, he literally said, Eric, you should go out, you should take, some aspect of Trump organization, you should go public, you should be stacking, BTC. I believe in it as much as Michael does. I really do. And, I actually said to Michael, I've never seen Hilton, try and encourage me to get into more hotels. I've never seen any kind of competitive business try so hard to get me into the space. And I thought that was a beautiful thing. And Michael's done that for so many people. And I think he's just a wonderful human being and the greatest spokesperson, certainly for Bitcoin, and one of the greatest spokespeople for the entire industry. But no, American Bitcoin is I want to do American data centers. And I had that company and we were working toward it. And I met these incredible people, Asher Canute, Mike Ho at Hut 8. And they looked at me, they said, listen, we've got the data center covered. Come on board with us. Let's do a Bitcoin concept. Let's do a treasury concept, but let's use the backbone of Hut 8, which is one of obviously the great data center companies in the country. Let's use that, for our Bitcoin play. We have the best power sources in the country. We have the best energy costs in the country. We have the best data centers in the country, right? Let's take the high volatility and move it over here into American Bitcoin. Let's take kind of the low volatility assets and keep it with Hut 8. And let's separate the two companies, but let's run them in tandem. Let's run them as brother sister companies. And so that day, American Bitcoin was found, and I never forget saying to them, "Listen, it's got to have two words in it. It has to have America, and it has to have Bitcoin." And one of the two guys said, "Listen, Eric, American Bitcoin, that's got to be the name." And so we registered the name, we bought the domains, and 5 months and 2 days later, we were registered on the Nasdaq. We were listed on the Nasdaq, and it was actually the fastest Nasdaq listing ever. We did a reverse merger with Griffin, and wow, I can't even begin to tell you the success. But I think what differentiates ourselves is the fact that every single day we mine. We mine Bitcoin. We're over 2% of the world's mining capacity. at one of our facilities. We're the single largest miner of Bitcoin on planet Earth under one roof, and I couldn't be more proud of it. And again, as I said before, we're mining roughly at 50% spot prices right now. So, we're mining in the 50,000s, when Bitcoin yesterday hit 126, I think right now it's 121 or 122, so every single day we're able to go out and acquire, run an ATM, acquire Bitcoin on one side, no different than Michael Saylor does. At the same time, we're able to dollar cost down those holdings by mining every single day. And we're mining 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it's really exciting. So we've got hard, tangible assets in data centers, in ASICs computers, in real exahash, that's sitting there. Very different than just a pure play, treasury company that's just going out, borrowing money, acquiring Bitcoin. We're doing both sides of that trade. And when the mining is really good, hey, we can focus on mining. When the treasury strategy is really good and MNAVs are really good, we can focus on that. When they're both really good, we can do both in tandem. But I do believe that we're going to be one of the true great Bitcoin companies anywhere in the world. I think, in fact, we already are. But we're really, I think, leading the way in so many ways, and phenomenal team and a company that I'm incredibly proud of. And last but not least, Jen, I'm incredibly proud to be doing it right here in the United States of America, which is exactly where we should be leading, the greatest crypto revolution ever.
I don't want to focus this interview on politics. It really is about you and your vision, I guess, for the crypto space. But I do have two questions for you on the topic of American Bitcoin. I know that you have a $1 million Bitcoin prediction. I'm not sure by when that is. When is that by?
Oh, it's going to take a number of years to get there.
Okay.
It's going to be in probably 2030s. I'd love it to be earlier, by the way. I'd love it to be earlier. Listen, Bitcoin's amazing. Jen, I have so many people, right? Listen, you and I are in this ecosphere every single day, but literally every single day I have friends of mine coming up and shaking me. Shaking me. You told me to buy Bitcoin and I didn't do it and I'm upset with you. And I go, well, wait, please explain. Like, I told you, when did I tell you to do it? 3 years ago. I go, okay, so, the price of Bitcoin was what? $40,000, $42,000, $45,000, and they're shaking me. I can't believe you didn't make me buy. Like, I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, put a gun to your head, bring you to your bank, and make you buy Bitcoin? Like, I told you to buy it. You should have bought it. And it's funny, Jen. I've had a lot of really good predictions. I was telling people. I was doing this on X. I told people, and by the way, this wasn't just BTC. I told people to jump into BTC. I think it was 82,000 at the time, and I go, guys, go all in, go all in. It fell another 2,000, and then it went skyrocketed up to where it is right now. A number of months ago, I told people, I think it was 2,400. I told people, I got a little criticized for this. I think it right now is a great time to buy ETH. I just feel like it's a great time to buy ETH. Sure enough, ETH dropped another, I don't know, $800, something like that, in a week. And so I started getting killed. Everybody, Eric says to buy ETH and you'd be down by, 20-something%. And literally instantaneously, it skyrocketed up to, close to 5,000, as you know so well. And I can't tell you how many people have come up to me and given me a hug saying those are two of the greatest calls. The BTC call that you put on your Instagram, the ETH call that you put on your Instagram and your Twitter feeds. But listen, I really do believe that you're going to have $1 million Bitcoin. I think we're going to be at 200,000 before we know it. I think we're going to have a phenomenal fourth quarter. Fourth quarter is always incredible for cryptocurrency. It's always been incredible for Bitcoin. It's probably your best quarter of all. You take that with money supply exploding around the world right now. You take that, you add to the uncertainty. You take all the kind of fissures in the dam that are cracking right now. The fact that everybody is allowing the custody of Bitcoin for the first time, the biggest financial institutions in the world, whether it's Fidelity, whether it's Schwab, whether it's JP Morgan. Obviously, you see the success of Coinbase and Robinhood. You see these spot ETFs, that are popping up. The most successful ETF in the history of ETFs was the BTC ETFs, and then all of a sudden you look around the world. 3 months ago, Vietnam was saying that they were never going to allow cryptocurrency, and now all of a sudden they're embracing cryptocurrency with the full might of the government. You see the same thing in Korea. You see the same thing in China. I just spoke at BTC at Bitcoin, Asia, and it was in Hong Kong. I had 25,000 people there, Jen, listening to me speak. And so this is a worldwide, phenomenon right now. Every company wants it. Every sovereign wealth fund wants it. Every Fortune 500 company is beginning to treasury it. It has become more accessible than ever before. This isn't 5 years ago where if you want to buy Bitcoin, you need to go out and set up a ledger, and be a computer scientist in order to do it, figure out how to log into, Metamask through browser extensions and how to try and loop money on Aave and all sorts of things that would lose most people in about 3 seconds. Now, all of a sudden, on Fidelity. I went and looked at my 401k the other day, and literally there was a little drop down. Would you like to start a Fidelity digital asset wallet? I clicked yes. I clicked a little disclosure, and all of a sudden, poof, there's a digital asset wallet through Fidelity right below my 401k. And the beauty of that is what? Fidelity controls, 40% of the 401ks or something in the country. It's a massive amount. All of a sudden, all those people instantaneously have access, to digital assets for the first time. And so the dam is breaking, and the worldwide adoption and regulations is especially, in not to get political, but especially based on the fact that America is leading the charge and everybody follows America. You better believe we're in the heyday of cryptocurrency, and we're only on the 1 yard line with 99 yards left to go. And you're going to see explosive growth in the next 10 years.
This episode is sponsored by Bridge, a Stripe company. Just as the internet made information global, stablecoins are making money global, and Bridge is the infrastructure powering that shift. Built for speed, scale, and simplicity, Bridge helps businesses send, store, accept, and launch stablecoins instantly, serve global customers without navigating the complexities of setting up crypto rails. It's how companies like X, Shopify, and AirTM unlock new markets, reduce FX costs, and move money at internet speed. Explore the future of global financial infrastructure at bridge.xyz. Looking for a faster, cheaper way to move money worldwide? Owlting, now listed on the NASDAQ under the ticker symbol OWLS, is building the rails for stablecoin payments. With OwlPay, you can seamlessly convert fiat currency to stablecoins, send money as easily as a text message, and on or off ramp globally. Learn more about Owlting at owlting.com. I had a guest on the show recently who said the biggest risk to crypto markets right now is probably market structure. If it doesn't pass by the end of the year, it could pose a risk to crypto markets. Curious to hear your thoughts there. Does your perspective change if we don't get this regulation passed by the end of the year?
No, it doesn't at all. Not at all. Not at all. I travel all over the world. I think one of the problems in the crypto industry, honestly, if I could be critical of Americans in the crypto industry, is they look at the crypto industry through an American-centric lens, and I think that's a very dangerous thing to do. I actually make a point. In fact, I'm very proud. I have a big part of MetaPlanet. I sit on the board. Simon's a very good friend of mine. Obviously, I think they've done it as well as anybody. Just amazing people. But I do that because I want to be able to understand cryptocurrency. I want to be able to understand Bitcoin. I want to be able to do so through the lens of other countries and kind of how their governments work and how their financial systems work. And so, it's not what America's doing. At least we've done more. My father has done more for digital assets, in his first week in office than everybody combined had done in the last 10-year period of time. And no one watching this would obviously, argue that. I mean, he's been amazing. But I think as part of that, he's created this unbelievable wake where you go over to Abu Dhabi, you go over to Dubai, you go over to Hong Kong, you go to China, you go to Japan, you go to Korea, right? And they're all following the Americans' lead. I mean, again, using that Vietnam example, it wasn't until America put together that kind of digital asset framework, that they dove headfirst in. And so if that had happened in the reverse, let's just say that Vietnam had created a structure for digital assets, America wouldn't have followed, and China wouldn't have followed, and the UAE wouldn't have followed, and, South American countries wouldn't have followed, right? The fact that America is leading the way, America is really like parting the sea, and everybody's following, in behind. And so that work that the administration has done hasn't just benefited, the 50 states. That work has literally benefited the entire, world, where everybody's following suit, using as America as the model of excellence. And by the way, that's who we should be as Americans. And so I really think, using kind of the floodgate analogy, the floodgates are open. I mean, the floodgates are open, even in places like Asia and China, where a lot of people were using VPNs and other things in order to buy cryptocurrency, and it was largely discouraged for a lot. I mean, I had 25,000 people at that conference watching us. There is such an appetite around the world, and I can make a lot of use cases for cryptocurrency globally that exceed even the use cases for cryptocurrency in America, just because of the established market that we have in America versus the non-established markets, that you have in so much of the world, where cryptocurrency becomes even more valuable.
Now, I know we're not talking about politics. This is the last one I want to ask about American Bitcoin. There were stories that came out probably a few months ago now about tariff squeezing US Bitcoin miners. I know that American Bitcoin has some time to purchase mining machines that are in China. Talk to me about if tariffs are affecting mining machines you have today or future operations.
Yeah. Well, listen, tariffs are the cost of doing business. You know what another cost of doing business is for Bitcoin mining? Energy, right? And energy's come down by leaps and bounds since obviously my father's got into office, right? I mean, energy under Joe Biden was insane. Do you remember the little Biden stickers with the little finger, and everybody was putting them at gas prices? I did this. Now all of a sudden we have some of the cheapest energy anywhere in the world, and so your biggest input, by far more than a tariff on a one-time purchase of a machine, right, is energy cost in terms of Bitcoin mining, and those prices have come down. I mean, Jen, try and go mine Bitcoin in Scotland. Like, go and try and mine Bitcoin in the UK, where energy costs fluctuate 5-6x a year, and are the highest prices anywhere in the world. I mean, you'd be paying to mine BTC, yet in America, we're doing it at some of the most efficient energy costs anywhere on Earth. I mean, anywhere on Earth, we are either ahead or beyond competitive, and that's a beautiful thing for the United States of America. So, listen, you could talk about tariffs, you could talk about other things. I actually think America is one of the greatest places to mine Bitcoin, and I think that the success of American, Bitcoin is clearly evidenced on the fact that it's working, and it's working extremely well.
Earlier on in this interview, you were describing the perils of centralization. You're talking about social media, you're talking about the banking system. I'm curious to hear about that decentralized world you're building towards. Is there
Yeah.
is there a place for the centralized players? Like, what is it that you envision every day when you wake up and go to work?
Oh, so World Liberty Financial is my other baby, and it's something that I care about so much. Some of the smartest people I've ever met, and I believe in it so much. I believe in the DeFi model. I believe, listen, is there a role for centralized finance? 100%. But I think where what I saw very quickly is how corrupted, kind of centralized finance could be. It took one person. It took a CEO of a bank or a board member of a bank to be able to effectively cancel us from modern finance, and that shouldn't happen. And that's why I believe in the DeFi rails more so than anybody. Why should somebody, if I have $10 in the bank and I want to go borrow 5, why should somebody be able to tell me I can't? Why should somebody be able to waste my time for 120 days and make me run through hell only to give me poor terms after they dilute the hell out of my money with fees and costs and expenses and appraisals and all sorts of other things they shouldn't be able to, right? And that's when I realized how broken the financial system was, saying, why can't mortgages be done on DeFi? Why can't they be done on blockchain? Why can't title be done on blockchain? If I want to go finance Trump Tower, why do I have to go out to Deutsche Bank? Why are there probably 5 lenders in the world that can finance Trump Tower? Why can't I go out to the millions of people who love Trump? And why can't I tokenize the building? Why can't I tokenize the financing of that building? Why couldn't I tokenize our golf courses if I wanted to among all the members? There's so many different plays that are so much more pure, as opposed to having, big financial institutions have their fingers in every financial transaction. And so that's the utopia for me. They hurt us so badly. They tried to take us out. They tried to destroy our company based on, weaponization toward my father because he was a politician and he was running for commander-in-chief of the United States. And they wanted to see him gone, and they wanted to see us broken. They wanted to see us bankrupt. And now in turn, we won that battle. The battle I'd like to win against the big banks is I'd like to see them gone in such a big way. I would like to see them totally irrelevant. There's no reason these big banks need 10,000 people in a skyscraper with, lavish executive offices. Guess who's paying all those expenses? You and me. The person who's trying to refinance their home, who's living paycheck to paycheck. Guess what? They're paying an extra 1 or 2% in terms of interest fees to fund these buildings, to fund these antiquated systems, to fund people pushing paper all over the country and all over the world. It's not fair. And by the way, you know who Jen, is maybe the biggest recipient of that system? Guys like me, where I can call up the head of any of these banks and say, you know what, I want better financing. I want better terms. You know why? Because I have leverage over them, because we have a lot of dollars with them, and they want our accounts, and they want our business, and they want our brand, and they want our properties. and they want everything else. But that doesn't benefit society. That doesn't benefit the average person in this world. And so, you look around globally. You use the example of Zimbabwe that I used before. I mean, imagine getting paid. You go and you work your 9 to 5, you work your job, and you get a check, right? And you have 1,000% inflation a year. That check is gone. You may as well have literally gotten paid for that week and thrown the check in a fire. Now, all of a sudden, you can go put it on USD1. That's our stablecoin. That's a World Liberty Financial stablecoin, fastest growing stablecoin on earth right now. And guess what? You can be pegged 1-to-1 to the US dollar. That gives them financial freedom. It's also a wonderful thing for the United States of America because it just takes our currency and it props it up even further. If we can have trillions of dollars flow into the US dollar, that's a beautiful thing for the United States of America, but it's also a beautiful thing for their financial freedom. And so, I would like to replace all the features of the bank. I would like a husband and wife or girlfriend and boyfriend or whoever the hell it is. I'd like them to be able to, drive by a house, see that house holding hands, say, oh my God, that's the house for us. They have a little for sale sign. They call up the owner, they negotiate the price. And 5 minutes later, that money is in the owner's account because they were able to borrow off of their cryptocurrencies. They were able to borrow off their digital assets and instantaneously buy that house versus calling the person, trying to negotiate a price, asking for financing contingencies, waiting 120 days, probably getting rejected by your bank because you voted for the wrong person or you believe in God or, you were canceled because you believed in, digital assets or the 100 other reasons why they've, come out against people in this country. I'd love to see that happen seamlessly. I'd love to see title in this country, transact on blockchain. So there's no question. You're not using title. This is how we make the modern financial world more efficient, better, and more fair. And it's coming. It's right there. And I can see it with every aspect of my heart and soul. I can see it right in front of me. And we are going to win this race. The people who believe in this right now, we are going to win this race.
Talk to me a little bit more about that because the banks are really institutions here in the United States. Our entire financial system relies on them. For a long time, it was, is it going to be centralized finance? Is it going to be decentralized finance? It really feels like now we're coming towards a place where it's a mix of CeFi and DeFi. The banks are starting to embrace some aspects of decentralized finance. What needs to happen for the reality that you've just envisioned for us to come to fruition?
Well, we've got to have a lot of people like me who push this every day with every ounce of their heart and soul. That's first and foremost. Crypto is going to win. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. Crypto is going to win. It's already won, frankly, right? But it's going to win. Second of all, you mentioned that kind of mix of CeFi and DeFi, and I think that's incredibly healthy, right? I mean, there should be centralized, products, and there should be completely decentralized products. I mean, you can go on Coinbase today, right? You can get the mix of both of them. I mean, you can go through a Web3 wallet and be on DeFi, and you can go through kind of their traditional channels and be on CeFi. I think it's a beautiful thing that, you can go on the NASDAQ and you can buy ABTC through the equity markets. I think that's a beautiful thing. But you know what? I think it's equally beautiful if you had $1 million worth of Bitcoin in a bank and you want to go borrow $700,000 because you want to buy your dream home. I think it's really nice if you can go to, the DeFi markets, use DeFi lending, right? And borrow that money and do so instantaneously where it shows up in your bank account 5 minutes later and you're able to buy that dream home, 120 days before, JP Morgan could otherwise get you a loan on your house. I think that's a beautiful. So I think optionality is really good for people in the world. I think one other thing, you can't look at it, through the lens of America. And this is what I encourage everybody to do. Take your same example and get rid of the American financial system and just pretend you're, in some kind of third world country. I mean, you name the country around the world. Guess what? They probably don't have that CeFi option. They probably don't have institutions who are honest, right? Who that aren't corrupted. And I think being able to give people DeFi options in those environments are an incredibly beneficial thing for humanity. And so there's going to be a mix of both of them. But I ultimately think that the power and control of the big banks, right, and the virtual monopoly that 4 or 5 banks have over all of America and maybe 10 or 15 banks have over all of the world, I think that's going to come crashing down in a very large way. And I think you're going to see so much more financial independence, which is going to make them have to sharpen the pencils and probably become a hell of a lot more competitive than they are today.
Yeah, what you're describing, I think we're really seeing it happen in Latin America, where everyone is using stablecoins, everyone is interacting with DeFi in a way that it's not really happening here yet, and it's
Yeah.
because there is a real need for that solution. So I think that you are right
Well,
there.
let me give you one little example. I mean, look at Argentina, right? So before Millie, Argentina was plagued by massive inflation. They'd see anywhere between kind of 60 and 100% inflation year over year, and obviously you had the peso, but you also had, you had the U.S. dollar, and the U.S. dollar was kind of the hidden counterfeit, but everybody wanted it. I mean, everybody wanted to transact in U.S. dollars. Everybody, was trying to get rid of their currency and buy into the U.S. dollar. People would come up to America, they would change all their money into U.S. dollar, they would bring it back, right? And so all of a sudden, you had this looming currency, over their country, and everybody wanted it, and you technically weren't allowed to have it, but everybody was transacting in it, and everybody was hoarding it, and that was the U.S. dollar, because again, they didn't trust their government and this inflationary environment that they otherwise lived in. Now all of a sudden, we have that same dollar, but instead of having it in paper money, guess where you have it? You have it on your phone. You have it on an app. You have it on DeFi. You're giving so much financial independence to people in those countries by doing so, right? And it's safe. It's backed 1-to-1. USD1 is backed 1-to-1 against the US dollar, et cetera, et cetera. And so you're going to see trillions and trillions of dollars flow into the US economy based on this. But again, as I said before, I don't mean to beat a dead horse. You're just giving financial freedom to people who otherwise would have been steamrolled, and people who otherwise didn't have a chance. And that's really why I actually believe that cryptocurrency is altruistic and charitable, and meaning in so many different ways. You're giving people choice, you're giving them freedom, you're giving them financial independence in ways that in so many places outside the United States they could never have.
You mentioned just a little while ago the tokenization of real estate and the potential to, tokenize your family's real estate. Would you ever consider tokenizing any of the real estate in your portfolio?
So I've got a big announcement. I won't tell you right now, but the answer is yes, I would. And now actually we're working on it as it pertains to one specific building that I'm doing right now, and I think it's going to be absolutely incredible. And I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, think about how aspirational that would be for so many people. We have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and probably billions of people that love our family around the world and love what we stand for as brand in terms of maybe being outspoken politically, but in terms of kind of luxury by which we build and the fight that we have, and being a little politically incorrect and often being on the front of these curves. And so many people would love to have a piece of something that we do. If I decided to build a hotel in Washington D.C. or in Dubai or in New York, why do I have to go out again using the Deutsche Bank, or why do I have to go out to them and get financing? Why can't I just go out to the masses? Why can't I go on my X and go out to our tens and tens of millions of people and say, guys, you know what? I'm going to build the greatest tower in Dubai, or in New York. Who wants to join along? Who wants to share in that? Who wants to buy 1/1 millionth of that building and put in $1,000 and be part of our success together, right? And then all of a sudden you can have perks when they come and stay in the tower, when they come and stay at the hotel, they can get free dinners, they can do this. But there are people who want to have an ownership stake over that, and they want to be part of it. And under no other scenario could they ever have had access to that project. They didn't have the money, they didn't have the means, they didn't have the capital, they didn't have the know-how, they didn't have the the bandwidth or the contacts. They could have never been involved with the ownership of Trump Tower Dubai or Trump Tower Washington, Washington D.C. or New York. No different than Taylor Swift. I mean, if Taylor Swift does an album, why can't she come out and say, listen, my next album, I'm going to tokenize it? For all the Swift fans out there, the millions of people, young girls that love her, if everybody wants to buy in for $50, I'm going to sell one token of my new album for $50, and you're going to have intrinsic ownership forever. The world is migrating to a system like that, right? And that's going to take out a lot of these power players that have really had virtual monopolies over these industries for a very long time. I think you're going to see the tokenization of art. And I'm talking about real art. I'm talking about tangible art. I'm not talking about digital art. I mean, the digital art community is amazing and it's been big. But I mean, if somebody wants to own a piece of Picasso and say that they're an owner of Picasso, but they can't afford a $30 million payment, why can't they go out and spend $100,000 and buy one share of that Picasso? No different than, owners of the New York Yankees. There's probably 10 different owners of the New York Yankees. And I'm sure there's probably somebody that owns 1% and there's probably somebody that owns 70%, right? But you still have multiple owners of the New York Yankees? Why can't you tokenize sports teams? And that's all coming, Jen, and it's all here. Wow, does that open up the investment potential for ordinary citizens tremendously to be able to touch and feel and invest and put their money in things that they would never otherwise have had access to, because the capital constraints would have been far too large, for their bandwidth.
You just kind of skirted over this tokenized real estate project. Can you give us any more details? When's this happening?
So I'm building a very big building right now, and one of the concepts is really kind of bring the two worlds together, World Liberty Financial and what we're doing in that project. And I think we'd have a lot of fun doing it. The World Liberty, I truly think it's one of the great projects in crypto. What we're building, what we're doing, and tokenization will certainly be at the heart of that. And obviously USD1. I mean, I think you've commented on it. I mean, there's never been a faster growing stablecoin to reach where we've reached as quickly as we've reached it. And so we're having a lot of fun with that. But it would be fun to kind of combine my two worlds. There's no one more passionate about hard assets. There's also no one in the world more passionate about kind of crypto assets. And if I can be the first real world case example of the bringing both of those industries together in a meaningful way for the benefit of all, I can't wait to be at the spear, the tip of the spear on that one. It will be so much fun, and we'll have such a great time doing it.
All right. Well, you'll have to give us more details when those are available. I want to talk about USD1 for a second. It feels like we have the new launch of a stablecoin every time I open up my computer. How do you think about competing in that environment? What's your vision for stablecoins? How do you stay ahead of the tethers and circles, or do all stablecoins kind of coexist and work together?
Yeah, I think there will be multiple stablecoins. I think a lot of them are going to fail, and I think we're extremely pure. Obviously, we're 1-to-1 on the U.S. dollar. It's exactly what people want. It's interesting. There's stablecoins that popped up in Europe. And just to talk for a second about the power of the U.S. dollar. I mean, the euro stablecoin that was proposed, only 0.5% of people wanted a stablecoin that was pegged to the euro. Right? It kind of shows the true intrinsic value of the dollar, but listen, I mean, think about how powerful that is. Think about not having to carry cash. Think about being able to interact worldwide instantaneously at virtually no fees, not having to go through banks. It's really a beautiful thing. I mean, I always pose the question to people, as I really explain kind of stable coins, and as I explain really the future of finance. I mean, go try and buy a watch in Morocco right now, right? I mean, let's just say you live in the United States of America. Let's make this as easy as humanly possible. And you want to buy a watch, or you want to buy a car from somebody in Morocco. How do you do it, right? And all of a sudden with stablecoins, it's going to solve that problem. If you had to use traditional cash, finance, modern banks, what do? You send a wire through the SWIFT system to some bank in Morocco that you've never heard about. There's probably some FX currency conversion fee. They probably steal your money, at some point. I mean, everybody's going to have their fingers in the cookie jar. Right. And at the end of the day, probably 60% of your money actually makes it there. And, I mean, think about on stablecoin being able to seamlessly transfer it to a wallet anywhere around the world instantaneously at very little fees, and your package and the product you bought or your business transaction. I mean, it's effectuated immediately. That's modern day finance, and it makes a lot of sense. Our current financial system, the current SWIFT system is broken. And so you're going to see stablecoins not only obviously be reflective of currencies around the world, but you're going to see stablecoins, be the rails by which all businesses are operated on. Again, circumventing the banks, circumventing credit cards, substantially lowering fees, substantially lowering the dilution of money, and that's happening, and that's being embraced very, very quickly. So I think USD1 is going to win the day. I think there were other great stablecoin projects, no question. Tether's done an unbelievable job, and they're doing phenomenally. I think this is all good for the United States of America, and I think you're also going to have a lot of stablecoins that just fizzle out and ultimately die. As you said, there are a lot of them, that are popping up, and most of them probably won't have the staying power, and most of them probably won't achieve the growth that we've already achieved. But I'm incredibly proud of what we've done at USD1, and there's a lot of incredibly exciting things on the horizon for our latest plans.
How many do you think we end up with if most fail?
I don't know. I think you end up with a handful. I think probably the cream rises to the top, as it always does in life, and then I think there's probably other stable coins that are in the UAE you might have a stable coin that kind of is pegged to their currency, and in Asia I'm sure you're going to have stable coins that are pegged to the various currencies in various countries. So I think you're going to have stable coins just by definition that act in different manners. But I think at the end of the day, I think the US dollar is going to win because it's what everybody wants. It's the only currency that anybody wants. And I think the people who do it best in the United States are going to win that race.
We were talking about Michael Saylor a little bit earlier and your friendship with him. Who do you talk to when you need advice on where this industry is going and advice on what you're building? I know some of the folks who are building in this industry who are probably in your network have been around building a little bit longer than you. Who are you talking to?
Oh God, probably everybody. I mean, I think I feel like I know everybody at the top of most of the companies in the crypto space, and they're amazing people, and I have so much respect for what they've built. I mean, I have so much respect for Saylor. I have so much respect for Brian Armstrong and what Brian's been able, what he's built. I mean, a great American story, a great American company of what they've been able to accomplish. I mean, but you go down the list. It doesn't matter if it's the heads of Kraken who have been at this probably as long as anybody. I feel like I know people from every single one of the respective projects. But I think the people I have the most admiration for is people I'm in the trenches with every single day. On the World Liberty side, obviously Zach Wickoff, amazing guy. Zach Folkman and Chase Hero, two of our partners, and just amazing people. Are really, really, really intelligent. Have been in the game for as long as anyone. Believe in this mission and their ethos with all of their hearts and all of their soul. What we're building is incredible. And on the flip side, on the American Bitcoin side, the sign right behind me, I mean, Asher Canute, what he's built with HUD 8, Mike Ho, what he's been able to do. These are the earliest people in the Bitcoin mining industry by far, not even close. They're amazing, incredibly intelligent. And I think we're building the greatest BTC company on earth. I mean, that's certainly our plan. And I think us, Jen. When we do something, we go all out. We don't mess around, and we're all in. We're all in for this industry. And if there's one thing I can say, I want to be critical of the industry on two fronts, and I think it has to be said. First of all, and I think the industry's changed a lot, but I want an industry that supports the entire industry in the crypto industry. And I think, for a very long time, and it's gotten so much better over the last 18 months, but for a long time, the industry was factionated where, if you're a Bitcoin guy, you're only a Bitcoin guy. If you're an ETH person, you were only an ETH person. If you believed in stablecoins, you only believed in stablecoins. If you wanted meme coins, you only believed in meme coins and everything else was junk. And I think for the first time, you've got real maturity in this industry where you have people who are, putting on a nice shirt, speaking articulately at conferences, and supporting the entire ecosystem. You might have your own preferences, you might have your own visions, you might have your own beliefs in who's going to win the race. But there's no question that we're all in this race together. And the better everybody does, the better it is for ultimately the industry. And so I'm glad to start seeing a little bit level of that maturity in kind of crypto. The one other thing, and I yell at crypto people all the time for this, and I feel like I'm yelling at myself at this point, but I come out of the hospitality industry. Right? No one ever walks into a Trump property without, the door being open for them and then being called their last name and them reaching down, shaking hands with their kids or touching their pets or pressing the elevator button and taking them directly to their room and making sure everything is absolutely perfect. We have to be an industry that focuses on hospitality. We have to be an industry that focuses on user experience. The faster we do that, the faster cryptocurrency is going to win. And so I'm speaking to the exchanges. I'm speaking to the DeFi platforms. You need to make these platforms user-friendly. And the faster we do that, the faster JP Morgan becomes irrelevant. The faster, the big banks fade out of view. When you make cryptocurrency, when you make DeFi complicated, it's going to slow down the adoption of those technologies by light years. And so I grab all of my friends in the industry and I say it all the time, make it enjoyable, make it easy, make it user-friendly. And I promise you, if we do that, we're going to speed up the process of adoption of cryptocurrency, not only in the US, but around the world by light years.
Eric, I wanna wrap us up here, and this is based on my own observation. In the United States, it feels like it is the more affluent bunch who interacts with crypto. But when we go to when we go outside of the United States and we go to the developing world, it feels like we were talking about earlier, everyone is interacting with crypto in some way out of necessity. If you think back to that story you told me at the beginning of the interview, working on the construction site, working with the everyday American, really kind of understanding their needs when it comes to their financial, environment. What do you want them to know about crypto?
Yeah. Listen, I certainly agree with you. Around the world is probably, in essence, maybe less affluent because they need it more for financial independence, right? The more affluent in China probably has access to more sophisticated markets and the ability to shelter their money and their ability to invest in hard assets and other things that allow them to remain solvent. Whereas, certainly, lower kind of tiers or socioeconomic status, people might need to be reliant on crypto for all the beneficial reasons that we talked about before. But I would also say in America, there's a culture of youth. I mean, I have a little nephew who's the greatest guy in the entire world, and literally all he thinks about is cryptocurrency. I've got Barron, who's an amazing kid, and he loves crypto. I mean, he's side by side with me, and loves the crypto game, and we've done tremendously well, and they had a lot of fun doing it together, right? And so, I can't tell you how many people in the younger generations are buying meme coins because it just entertains them, right? It's no different than fantasy football probably saved the NFL. You're having meme coins, which again, I'm more of a utility guy. That's just kind of what's in my nature. But all of a sudden you've got these kids that are buying coins with their friends, and they're betting on certain things that they believe in, and they're betting on certain brands, and they're having a great time interacting with it, and that's ultimately bringing them into modern finance, and that's giving them the wallets, and that's giving them the understanding of how money moves, and ultimately will bring them into Bitcoin, will ultimately bring them into Ethereum, will ultimately bring them into investing, and again, in modern day finance. And so, listen, certainly a lot of affluent people in the United States are absolutely investing in cryptocurrencies. There's not a day that goes by where I don't pop up my phone and it's not another Fortune 500 company that started treasuring Bitcoin, right? We see this every single day, and every single day I see that, I start cheering. But don't underestimate the youth in this country that's enamored by this movement and having a lot of fun with it. More importantly than anything, having a lot of fun with it. And that gives me tremendous hope for what's to come.
Is Barron a secret Degen?
Barron loves crypto. Barron, I think I'm the first one in my family to find it. Barron, I think, had fun with some of the the different meme coins and fun projects, but Barron certainly loves it, and it's a big part of our relationship together, and he has a lot of fun with it. And when I started World Liberty, come on, buddy, let's go. Let's have some fun with this. And Don's been amazing. Obviously, my brother Don, and he's been on the stages around the world as well, and he's had a lot of fun with it as well. But we're also damn serious about it, right? We're serious people. This isn't a joke to us. I mean, this is a calling for me. I mean, I really, really believe that. And I don't say that in a hokey. This is an absolute calling for me. And a lot of it comes out of the terrible experience that I mentioned before, being under siege and having, everything, having somebody try and take everything away from you. All right. And Jen, we're one of the most powerful families in the country, in the world, balance sheet wise, voice wise, obviously now politically. And they tried to destroy us. And man, did they do a good job coming after us. Thank God we won, and we won decisively. But most people wouldn't have stood a chance. They wouldn't have stood a chance against those political attacks and that weaponization. And I think cryptocurrency for those people are more applicable than anyone. And I think cryptocurrency, even outside the U.S., is probably more applicable than ever before, because at least we have the greatest economy in the world. There's no question about that. Elsewhere, I couldn't even imagine the lack of financial freedom that you have in so many places that is solved by cryptocurrency. And that's why we're winning. That's why modern day finance, that's why this financial revolution is winning.
Eric, thanks so much for joining the show.
Thanks, Jen. It's great to be on.